The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, where we've had freezing rain for the last day and a half. And it's a wonder that our power hasn't gone off. I was speaking to somebody at the Power Commission, and where we were prior to St. Catharines and Crystal Beach, they have been without power for a day and a half. So, to all you people in Crystal Beach who are listening to us on your Crystal radio sets, get it? Crystal Beach, Crystal radio sets. Okay. Glad you're with us tonight. Let me see. There was something very interesting in the news. Canada is looking at blocking TikTok because of its interference and violation of the Canadian privacy policy. That's number one. Number two, Google is considering limiting Canada to 4% or even just not supplying any news feeds because the Canadian government says, listen, you are giving away news services and the journalists aren't being paid. Now, it's either you and the other big digital companies who use this content, pay the journalist or the publishing company, or else we're just going to block you. So Google got a little ticked off. Or did they get TikToked? Anyway, they got a little ticked off, and they're cutting 4% of all Canadian services on Google as a little slap on the wrist to the Canadian government. Now, Google tried this in Australia. It didn't work, and I'll tell you, if it didn't work in Australia, it's not going to work here. And photos have emerged out of the Pentagon today of a U-2 spy plane over the Chinese balloon. That was a rather interesting photo, and my question is, if these U-2 spy planes are up there, how come they've never taken any pictures of these so-called UFOs? You know, the ones from the little planets out there? It's very simple, because there are none. So there you go, a little brief of the news, and we're coming to you on behalf of the good people at Beautiful Mind Coffee. Beautiful Mind Coffee. It's very delicious at www.beautifulmindcoffee.ca. My guest this hour is GWILDA WIYAKA. She is the hostess with the mostess on Mission Evolution and Stairway to Heaven. Hey there, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Rob.
How are things in Colorado?
Very windy, cold. We're kind of on the edge of that big system that you're suffering from.
Oh, you can have it back if you'd like.
Oh, no, thank you. You can keep it.
Oh, so what's new with you? What's new in the world of GWILDA WIYAKA?
Oh, not a whole bunch. Just continuing on doing Mission Evolution and enjoying that very much, and visiting with my friend and producer, Rob McConnell, tonight.
Yeah, it's great having you with us. Your guest, your second guest that you had, Dr. David Bercelli.
Bercelli, yeah.
Interesting guy.
Wasn't he? Yes. Yeah, he was a lot of fun, and what he's offering, what he says makes a lot of sense.
It does. Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense, and he's been working with war-torn countries, and it's just amazing. And what he's come up with, a person can do for themselves. It doesn't require a practitioner, so that's wonderful, because there's not that many practitioners when you're looking at all the trauma in the world right now.
That's true, and it's nice to see somebody like him doing so much for so many people, and he just seems to be a very real, genuine, nice guy.
Yeah, that was my take. He was just a delight.
Now, tonight, I understand we're talking about psychic warfare, myth, legend, or terrifying reality. Which one do you say it is? Is it a myth? Is it a legend? Or is it a terrifying reality?
All of the above, in my opinion.
Pray tell.
Well, psychic warfare has been around as long as human beings have, and a lot of it is shamanic in nature. Thus, it's one of my interests. But it's taken on some woo-woo to it, but the
Mhm.
fact is that it's being used today in a lot of forms as well as has been used in the past.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, isn't psychic where? Well, let me try this again. I was going to say psychic welfare, psychic warfare, something that a parent does. It's called also intimidation.
Yes, that absolutely
Yeah.
is intimidation, and yeah, and
Yeah.
and there's an energy behind that as well. As it's not just a mental thing. There's
Yeah.
an energetic push to it that makes it psychic versus emotional or mental.
Yes, my mother's hand had a lot of energy behind it. I can tell you that.
Ah, yes, I know that one.
So I understand that psychic warfare goes back to the time of the Egyptians.
Yes, it does.
Wow.
It does. I did a little research on those. Would you like to hear?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, the mummy's curse is the curse of the pharaohs,
Hmm.
or the mummy's curse. It's alleged to be cast upon anyone who disturbs a mummy of ancient Egyptian, especially a pharaoh. The curse, which does not differentiate between thieves and archaeologists, is claimed to cause bad luck, illness, and death. As an example, in 1922, the British archaeologist Howard Carter discovered the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, who died in 1323 BC. His tomb was in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, where the pharaohs were buried from the 16th to the 11th century BC. The
Hmm.
fifth Earl of Carnarvon, an Egyptologist who was financing the project, joined Carter and his team to enter the burial chambers before it was ever opened. They found
Right.
it, and before it was ever opened, he joined them. So he was right there on the front lines with them coming in, and they found the pharaoh's mummified body. Not long after, Lord Carnarvon died in Cairo, aged 56. At the same time, the lights in the city went out, which set off a frenzy of speculation,
Hmm.
and the news got involved. Okay, so this has been a very well publicized event. But this was followed by 6 deaths in succeeding years of various members of Carter's team. Alleged victims of the curse included, and there's a big long list of names. Do you want to hear them, or does it matter?
It really doesn't matter, but
So,
you're talking about a mummy's curse here, right?
yes.
What about a daddy's curse?
Well, apparently the mummy's cursors were worse.
I remember those days too. So, wasn't there also some speculation that when King Tut's exhibit was coming over to America, it was supposed to have been on the Titanic?
There was speculation, and
Yeah,
I don't know where that ended up, but there's a lot of speculation about that. The problem with the Mummy's Curse is it's such a fantastic story that the news will get a hold of it, and so then you don't know you
yeah,
don't know what's real and what's hype and hysteria. But yeah, it was part of it was supposed to be on the Titanic.
yeah. Apparently, according to several Egyptologists that I've talked to over the years, the mummy's curse is basically something to ward off explorers, archaeologists, and grave robbers in particular, that there is no such thing as a mummy's curse. But when you look at all the facts that you just related to us about the King Tutankhamun's burial opening and what happened with that, you have to wonder.
You
Coincidence? I
do.
don't think so.
Yeah, you do have to wonder. And the Egyptians were very strong shamanically. If you look at the hieroglyphics, they had power animals, they had spirit helpers, they did
Mhm.
a lot of ritual and a lot of things, working energetically to torque
Right.
reality and to torque outcome. And so it would not, coming from my background, it would not be surprising to me if there wasn't some truth to it, and that it lasts till today.
Is it possible that there's a lot of the power of suggestion behind it as well?
I absolutely believe
Yeah.
that. Yes.
Because
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken, there are people who throughout history have been known to have willed themselves to die, fulfilling a prophecy.
Yes. Uh-huh. There's, been a lot of that. In fact, there was speculation that Jesus did that.
Well, he did a lot of things.
Walked on water, willed
Well,
himself to die.
listen, the only way that he walked on water was he knew where the rocks were. Okay, let's get that straight right now.
Right now.
Okay, something else you sent us was ghost dancers. What are they?
Those are really fun. The ghost dance is a Native American ceremony, and most Native American ceremonies are really, really ancient and have been handed
Hmm.
down from generation to generation. This one, however, was a ceremony incorporated into numerous American belief systems, Native American, according to the teachers of Northern Paiute spiritual leader WIVOKA. Performing the dance would reunite the living with the spirits of the dead, bringing the spirits to fight on their behalf in the Caucasian westward expansion and bring
Hmm.
peace, prosperity, and unity to Native American peoples. Well, we know how
Well,
well
that
that
didn't
worked.
work. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's what happens
exactly.
when you take peyote, I guess.
Exactly. Well, actually,
Also known as
peyote
peyote.
wasn't a huge bit. It wasn't a huge part of the original ceremony. The
Hmm.
basis for the ghost dance is the circle dance, which is a traditional Native American dance. The ghost dance was first practiced in Nevada, northern Paiute, in 1889. But then the practice swept through much of western United States, quickly reaching areas of California and Oklahoma. And as the dance spread from its original source,
Hmm.
different tribes synthesized selective aspects with ritual and their own beliefs. And so that's where we get the peyote sliding into it.
Yeah,
But originally, it was not a peyote ceremony, it was a circle dance.
but it still didn't work.
Nope, we're here.
Yeah, there we go.
I say we, I'm part
Yeah.
Native American, so slap my face, right?
All right, you
But
and I have to take our first break, so please stand by. Exonation GWILDA WIYAKA is our guest, www.missionevolution.org. And we will be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. And we're back. Before we get back to talking to GWILDA about the psychic warfare myth, legend, or terrifying reality, I just have to let everybody know that in the month of January, the X Zone TV channel, that's channel 32 on Simul TV, had over 3 million viewers. That is pretty good, especially when you consider that the major companies up here in Canada, like, let me see, we have Crave, we have Stack, X Zone TV channel had 6 times the viewing audience that they had. So that's pretty good. And I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us on the X Zone TV channel. To find out more on how you can watch it, www.simultv.com. Gwilda, welcome back. We finished talking about ghost dancers because we know that the Indians tried it. It didn't work, and they decided to get stoned instead, and that's where Cheech and Chong come from. Let's talk about voodoo now.
well, voodoo, Cheech and Chong. Oh, I love it.
Or is it
Um,
you do voodoo, I do voodoo, therefore you do voodoo, I do voodoo?
there we have it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Voodoo is often very misunderstood, but it's basically African shamanism. Okay. But everybody's heard about the voodoo dolls. And one of the things that voodoo was very strong in was the slaves when they were kidnapped and brought over here to be slaves. And
Mm-hmm.
so they started, feeling helpless. They started really strongly practicing their voodoo tradition. And everybody's heard of a voodoo doll.
Sure.
And so they would fight back energetically rather they couldn't do it physically. They were overwhelmed and overpowered and everything else. But there was a lot of misfortune that happened to a lot of the slave owners that was unexplainable at the time, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally think there's probably a lot of truth to that because the ceremonies, whether they be voodoo or Native American or Celtic or whatever, the ceremonies are designed to focus a person's intent. And if you get more than one person focusing their intent, there's an energetic impact from that. And so the energetic impact can, if a person is vulnerable, can really cause some havoc with their health and everything else.
Okay, I can understand that part, but how does that relate to the voodoo dolls and the putting of pins in the voodoo dolls? And how much of this is just not, once again, power of suggestion?
Well, I think it's a mixed bag, Rob. I
Okay.
really do. Like I said, if a person is vulnerable, okay.
Hmm.
Now there's a difference between being solid and processed and centered within yourself and putting things into denial. So putting it that it could ever happen, it's not real, into denial doesn't necessarily make it not affect you. However, being grounded, recognizing this could be a thing, but I'm going to shore myself up by being balanced. Um, then you don't necessarily have to be subject to it. But the voodoo dolls are what they call in shamanic practices all over the world. It's a practice of using a surrogate. And what they used to do is take hair or,
Hmm.
clothes or something that had cells of
Yeah.
the person that they wanted to attack. Well, now that we're learning more about DNA and frequency, you can take a person's DNA in a test dish, a petri dish, on the other side of the room, on the other side of the continent, and do something to it, and it's going to be the same response is going to show up in the petri dish that's right in front of them versus a long ways away. So there is scientific evidence behind the taking of the hair and making a voodoo doll, and whether it pokes pins and it makes a difference. It's the intention of the person. Just like they would electrify or shock heart cells in a petri dish a long ways away from the petri dish that was being watched, and the cells in the dish that was being watched but not shocked would respond.
How come the public doesn't know about all these scientific discoveries that based on what you're telling us proves that there is a connection? Like, how come nobody hears about this?
Well, I don't think they make the connection because voodoo and magic
Hmm.
and shamanism and all.
Yeah,
It's,
but
it's kind of
what I'm trying to say here, if you're telling us that if you do something to what were you saying, cells or
Mhm.
DNA here, let's say you've got a petri dish with DNA or cells in Colorado. Here I am in St. Catharines, and if you did something to the cells in Colorado, that based on the fact that the cells that I have, let's say in a piece of hair that you decided to use for this experiment, and there was a reaction from one country to another without any interference or anything else, why wouldn't anybody hear about this is astounding. So why doesn't the scientific community tout this?
I really think that because science at this point scoffs at anything esoteric for the most part.
But
Now,
it but
I say for the most part, but right now we're seeing a lot of people, a lot of scientific people that are starting to incorporate, because they're seeing this, are starting to incorporate the more esoteric, oh, well, that's what they were talking about when they did this. But it's
yeah,
all really leading edge stuff. But the studies are out there, and I kind of have made it my mission to make those connections, because if we start recognizing that there is something to this esoteric part of our world
right.
and it does have an impact, I think it's going to change the way we view things and the way we respond in a
but
positive way, I'm hoping.
but you said you make the connection. So what you're saying is that you've made the connection, not the scientific community.
Oh, no, there's a lot of people in the scientific community that have made the
Okay.
connection. Like the gentleman that did OSHA, I can't ever remember his name, did the experiment with water. He would put, he was, Japanese, I believe, and he would put a vat of water,
Hmm.
purified water, and then he would put a name or a word onto the water. And then he would have, he put it in two different beakers. One had a word on it, the other one
Hmm.
didn't. He'd fast freeze them both.
Right.
And then he would look at the water crystals under microscope. And it was amazing. He photographed them and everything. It was amazing. And it was consistent, just like Chladni's plates that we've
But
talked about before. The
what did he
crystals,
photograph?
the crystals
Okay.
that showed up in the two different beakers, the control beaker that
Yeah.
didn't have a word written on it, and the beaker that did. So say for
Okay.
instance, he would put the word for love. He was
Right.
Japanese, but he put the word for love on one. The crystals look totally different than the ones in the control. And if you put and they started, the ones in the beaker that was the word love were beautiful. But then when he put the word hate and did the same experiment, those crystals weren't so nice looking. They were
Mhm.
distorted looking. It's amazing. He's got a whole book out on with pictures of these the results of these experiments,
No
and it can be
disrespect, but
reproduced.
there's people out there that have books full of UFOs on them in them too.
There's that.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
I'm a little leery about all of this, because if it is so great and if these experiments really prove the connection, why don't we all know about it? Why isn't it on CNN or CBC, CTV, any of the major news media? To me, that would be breakthrough, a scientific breakthrough that would actually prove a connection to the psychic realm instead of looking for UFOs that don't exist.
I would like to see that come through too. But as an example, Rob, did you know that in long-term COVID, they're finding that there's been heart damage because the heart becomes incapable of absorbing calcium
Yep.
because of a compensation it made?
Yep.
Where did you learn that?
I learned it from my medical friends.
Medical friends, but it's not on the news, right?
It is. If you look at the news feeds pertaining to COVID, that information is there.
Okay.
But it isn't of such a, I don't think it's such of the magnitude of the discoveries that you're talking about. Now, and this is why I'm saying if like, wow, what you're talking about is earth shattering.
Right.
Interesting. An eye for an eye. What's that about?
Well, an eye for an eye is an ancient belief that if a wrong was done, so if someone killed a warrior from a different tribe or a different clan, then they would go and kill someone equally important from their clan to balance the books.
Yeah.
An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The problem with that phenomenon is it doesn't balance it. It casts a further imbalance, causing further polarization. Okay, so like they say, two wrongs don't make a right. But it is a psychic warfare in that it's working with the energy of balance, like trying to balance the books, which is an energetic thing, not a physical one. Although if you kill somebody, that's pretty physical. But that was a pretty interesting thing that's been around forever. That eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth thing. I think it's mentioned in the Bible, and it's certainly been practiced by numerous cultures.
Isn't that the same as karma? What goes around comes around. Paybacks are a bitch.
I guess so.
Yeah. Let me see. We also have cannibalism.
Ooh, yeah.
So you can say, all right, I've got a bone to pick with you, so to speak, right? Are you having a good time tonight, Fred? No, I'm having a ball. You know what? I don't know. I'll keep an eye out for you. There you go. That's enough your lip service. Oh, man, speak with many tongues. Yeah. All right. Your turn.
My turn. Okay. So in certain psychic warfare, there is cannibalism, and that was practiced by various tribes and clans and everything else, that if they had a particularly tough opponent, that even though they killed them, they were the enemy, but they had to respect this guy's prowess, if you will. Okay. They would cut out and eat their heart so that they could absorb their courage. They could absorb their strength. Okay. It sounds pretty nasty to me. But again, if you're looking at, you are what you eat, okay, and resonance, well, there might be some reasoning behind it.
Or some bad table manners, I'm not sure, but at this stage of the game, we're just going to say, we got to take a commercial break, so please don't go away. WIYAKA is our guest, missionevolution.org. She's also the young lady behind Stairway to Heaven. And for all the work that she does as a shaman, she has got courses, she's got classes, she's written many books. Visit findyourpathhome.com. I'm Rob McConnell, and I think that I'm going to find somebody to munch on during this break. We'll be back shortly. Don't go away. Hey, there we go. It's one of those days here in St. Catharines. I was just contemplating a new diet menu based on cannibalism. For example, how come they don't have camel burgers in Egypt? Or Buddha burgers in Asia? Huh? How come? Makes no sense. Lima burgers in Peru. Hey, McDonald's is missing out on a whole bunch of goodies. Starbucks in Italy is now using olive oil in their coffee. It's apparently going to be the biggest thing, and they're just waiting to finish their test markets in Italy before it spreads around the world. I think they're going to be on a slippery slope, but that's just my opinion. WIYAKA is back. Sorry about that, Golda.
It's okay.
It's been a long day. What can I say? GWILDA is the host of Mission Evolution on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Our website is missionevolution.org. Stairway to Heaven, it is a vignette that GWILDA does. The website there is stairwaytoheavenmedia.com. And of course, findyourpathhome.com, where you teach courses. You've got your books. And do you have any courses coming up soon?
Yes, I always have them available
Oh, good.
online. They're
Any
video
on a
courses.
tiger? Yeah.
On a tiger, yes. Video classes online. And probably comes, closer to spring, we'll do
Mhm.
a Beltane class that would be a live Zoom type class.
Are you finding more and more people are looking back into their roots and looking differently at the topics that you cover in your courses?
I am. Since the pandemic and everything, it was
Mhm.
like a shot across the bow for a lot of people, and they
Right.
went, okay. I was cooped up alone, and I had a lot of time to think, and w- what can I do in my world, in my life? How can I empower myself?
Right.
And they're starting to reach back to their roots and find what works for them from the repertoire there, and it's pretty fun.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on all the great things that you do.
Thank you.
All right, let's get back to the topic. Psychic warfare, myth, legend, or terrifying reality. Well, it scares the hell out of me sometimes. Let's go to shape-shifting.
Well, shape-shifting is an interesting phenomenon, and again, it's used by all shamanic societies, and all societies have shamanism at their core, all that I know of, and in one form or another. But what shape-shifting is when a person can take on the frequency, the expression of a particular animal or a rock or whatever,
Mhm.
and thus be kind of invisible in a way. So a lot of the Native Americans, say for instance, had a power animal. Say they had a power animal of a fox, and so their fox can be very invisible.
Foxy.
They slide around
Yeah,
real easy, and so they would kind of take on that persona when they go to get intel, go spy on the enemy, and they call that shape shifting. Now,
I
I've
see.
never seen a person change into an animal,
Right.
and
I have.
but
I got
now
6 kids. When they're young, it's "Hi, Daddy," and as you grow older, they're the spawn of devil. Ah! Then as they grow older, it's "Hi, Daddy. Can I have some money?" You know. So that's shape shifting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is,
Mm.
and people shapeshift all the time. That's a whole nother topic, but
Yeah.
using different frequencies to put out a different impression in
Mhm.
order to get what they want. And that's exactly what you were describing.
Exactly. Alrighty. War dance.
War dances are interesting, particularly when you consider they're reproducing themselves in concerts and
Yeah.
the dances before football and this sort of thing. But anytime that you get rhythm and a lot of movement and a lot of
Mhm.
intention coming together, so a war dance is a way that the warriors, again, whether they were Celtic or the bagpipes, that's what that was about, would psych themselves up to go into battle and to feel uh, infallible and to have courage and to unite themselves
Mhm.
as an army,
Right.
and they're very effective, extremely effective. The Native Americans used war dances.
Well, that didn't
Um,
work out very good for them, did it?
no,
If you
the
let it-
Celts did pretty well though. You're still around.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we knew what to do.
It was the Scottish bagpipes though. Those things scare the enemy in the middle of next week, right?
I don't know. I'm Irish.
That's what I said. Scottish
Yeah.
bagpipes is There are Irish bagpipes too, though, by the way.
Yes, but they're usually married. What?
Robert.
Okay. Yeah, war dance is. I guess that was just like an Amway meeting where everybody gets really prepped up, and no.
I didn't. I'm sorry, we broke
An
up a little.
an Amway meeting, where they have all these people come in and they're all excited, and
Yeah, there's
or
a
an
word end for
evangelistic,
you.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
or an evangelistic event with Jimmy Swaggart or any of the other.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I thought of something the other day and I was going to talk to you about it. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to talk to you about it right now.
No
You
problem.
know how everybody says that the government is involved in a conspiracy to cover up the truth,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay.
Right.
So you talk to all these ufologists and they say, well, we got the information from the Freedom of Information Act. I say, okay, where does that information come from? Well, the government. So how do you know they're giving you the real information? It didn't dawn on them. I'm telling you, they said, well, we never thought of that.
Well, it's like Star Trek.
Oh, geez.
Listen to me carefully. Everything I say is a lie.
Yeah.
Rob, I'm lying.
Mm-hmm.
And there you
Okay.
have it. There's that paradox, right?
Like, it's like, so you're telling me that you don't trust the government, but you think that the Freedom of Information papers that they're sending you are the truth. Oh, yeah. Why? Because it's got black lines in it? Well, no, it's because it comes from the government. Yeah, but you don't trust the government. Oh, yeah, we trust the papers that we get. You're morons. Okay, that's what I want to talk to you about. Okay. I just don't understand. You know, like, I've been doing this show for 32 years. Nothing's changed except I was right about Roswell. Thank you,
Yes, you
Japan.
were.
Thank you, Chinese. Okay. Modern day psychic warfare, psychological warfare. I believe in that because my mother was part of MK Ultra. She went to the doctor in Montreal with migraine headaches. I was too young, so it wasn't me. So she went to the Allen Memorial Hospital under Dr. Ewan Cameron, who we did not know at the time had been granted with the sanctioning of the Canadian government money from the CIA to do mind experimentation using LSD and sleep deprivation. So I fully believe in psychological warfare. I experienced it firsthand throughout my life, and it made a hell of a mess of her. You know, God bless her. She passed away a couple of years ago, and horror stories, really horror stories. So I don't think we need to go into psychological warfare because it is real.
Well, unless you want to hear what I have on it.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it emerged in the beginning of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than a military test of superior weaponry and armed troops, psychological warfare is a mental struggle for the minds and spirits of the citizens and soldiers. Learning from Hitler's example, Britain revolutionized its propaganda by establishing the Ministry of Information.
Mm-hmm.
Britain developed psychological warfare into a science through careful studies of the psychological vulnerabilities of the human mind. As the value of psychological warfare became clearer, the British government created various subdivisions of the MOI responsible for various aspects of psychological counterattack on Nazi Germany. The highly classified work of the political warfare executive involved the recruitment of various British psychologists to research and oversee the production of new psychological weapons. Isn't that interesting? So it was prompted back then by what Nazi Germany was doing.
And yet my research goes further back to the end of World War I, where it was the Americans who started analyzing and working on psychological warfare, including misinformation, fake news, as we call it today. So it's interesting. You and I have to take our final break. GWILDA WIYAKA is our guest, missionevolution.org. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. We're coming to you on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, and Channel 32 on Simul TV. We'll be right back as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Welcome back, everyone. GWILDA WIYAKA is my guest, www.missionevolution.org. Let me see, going down the list that you were so kind enough to send us, and it's always a great pleasure talking to you, my dear friend.
It's so fun being with you, Rob.
That's what she said. Vietnam War.
Like I said, a lot of fun.
Life. We're here for a good time, not for a long time.
There's that.
There's that. So let's talk about the Vietnam War.
Okay. So I had the pleasure, actually, of working with a lot of Vietnam vets professionally, as far as doing shamanic work with them, trying to treat for PTSD. And what kept coming up over and over again was that there had been a curse, if you will, an energetic restriction or distortion that was very common to all of these men that didn't seem to align with their military training.
Do you know what that was?
I'll bet you do, right? You've got an idea,
sure
I
do.
can tell. Okay.
President Lyndon B. Johnson.
Okay.
I have a lot of respect for the men and the women who went over there and fought so valiantly and so bravely. Kevin Randall, who's a host here on the show, on the network, he was a helicopter pilot in
bless his
Vietnam.
heart.
My cousin Frankie, we're up here in Canada. He joined the United States Marine Corps, and just as he's getting off the landing craft in Vietnam, steps on a mine, poof, gone. So, and then the way that the veterans were treated when they came back to the United States, it was horrible. It was horrible.
Ghastly.
Yeah. So anyway, there we go. Another little
go.
editorial.
Well, we're both of the same era.
Yeah.
And I saw, as a young woman going to college, I saw a lot of the impact on people from Vietnam with PTSD. And the instead of being, like you said, welcomed home as heroes, they were treated horribly when they got home. And so they didn't have support on either side. They were loathed, hated, and cursed as the enemy in Vietnam. And then they were loathed, hated, and cursed as warmongers in the United States. And I think it was probably the largest, most intensely devastated group of soldiers that we've ever had, because they had no place to be okay. And that energetic cursing, if you will, from both sides was absolutely devastating for most of them.
I don't understand why people in the United States didn't realize that these guys were forced to go by the draft. It's not as if they volunteered. They were forced.
Exactly.
So how can you blame them for the atrocities that happened over there? Like, there's atrocities in every war.
Yes, there are.
Yeah, and you know why these soldiers, God bless them, were so ill treated? It's beyond me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The final topic, because we're nearly out of time, politics.
Politics. Well, that takes us right backwards into psychological warfare, doesn't it? In that there's propaganda being put out there to polarize, you're one party or the other, to polarize people against each other. And, while you're busy fighting each other, they're doing what they want to do behind the scenes. Politics is a perfect example of manipulation of the masses in order to reach a goal. And it's so prevalent in all of our countries. And we don't get the truth about anything, really, I don't believe. It's very difficult to read through this polarized propaganda that people consider news and media, because it's all doctored up, if you will, and energetically distorted in a way that distorts the people involved. So this is, I think, one of our largest enemies right now.
Well, I blame the major media for that, because it seems that journalistic integrity has gone by the wayside. We take too much for granted. The population has such a hunger for news, and it's said within the industry, if it don't bleed, it don't lead. And
it's an adrenaline fix.
It's not only that, but it's a numbers game. The more people you have watching, listening, reading, the more you can charge for advertising, the more units you're going to sell, the more clicks you're going to get. So it has to be sensationalized because you want to take the audience from A, B, C, D and put it into something like the church religion. You know, my God is the same God in your Bible, but you know, I'm in Rome, I'm in the Vatican, you know, and it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. I often wonder what would happen if Jesus Christ ever came back to earth.
Oh,
And
he would
so,
not be a happy boy.
no,
You know, the turning over the tables in the temple with
yeah.
the money changers. I think we'd see something like that going on.
As usual, Golda, time goes by so fast when you're with us. What are your final thoughts for the Exo Nation tonight?
I think that it's so important to recognize that we are under attack with psychic warfare. It's going on all the time in every avenue of our life. And the only way to see through it is to not buy into it and to stay back, don't judge, don't polarize, just hide and watch, because I think facts are going to emerge that will shatter the illusion in the not too distant future.
Let our listeners know how they can get to see more of you and what you have coming up on your show.
Okay, on my show, I have Olivier coming up. I'm trying to remember. It's going to be next week. I'm trying to remember what he's about. He's a pretty fascinating person, but I can't remember his topic exactly. But I will have another show coming up in this coming week. And then as far as how to contact me, my website, findyourpathhome.com, has all of my stuff on it. And if you want to watch my radio shows, my TV shows, that's on missionevolution.org. And Stairway to Heaven is on stairwaytoheavenmedia.com.
My good friend, take care of yourself way out there in Colorado. Don't
Thank
get
you.
into trouble. I know you will.
Of
And
course I will.
please, let Bigfoot go.
No.
We miss him here.
Oh, I know, but it's warmer here.
Good night, Wilda. All right, Exo Nation, that's it for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow night as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And we're here every night as we cross the time-space continuum. To my producer here in the studio, Craig West. Thank you, Craig. My program director, Mac Alexander. And to my senior producer and lovely wife and best friend, Laura Rogers. Get the beautiful mind coffee on the pot, honey. I'm on my way home. So until tomorrow night, Exo Nation, always remember to keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light. Good night now.